Hello and welcome back to a new Godot tutorial. In this short video I want to show you how you can create a simple selection screen for a game, and as you can see we have 4 different characters to choose from. We have the knight, the mage, the rogue and the barbarian. So let's say if I want to select the knight, I'm going to click on it. It's going to show a simple animation, show the circle around him and change the name of the label to knight. It's going to do the same thing for the mage and for the rogue. So let's take for example if I select the knight and click on the start button, then it's going to send him to a new level, a new scene. Let's go back, and this time let's select the mage, click on start. It's going to send him to the new level and we can go back. In this video I'm using the K-Kit Character Pack Adventures that I download from itch.io, and I'm also using the Dungeon Remastered 3D Asset Pack. And if you want to use them, the download links are down below. Okay, so as always, we're going to open a new project. Let's create a new 3D scene. And I'm going to change the name to character selection. And then I'm going to create a new node that I'm going to add all of my characters to. So let's change the name to characters. I'm also going to need a camera 3D, so I'm going to add it like that. Move it a little bit back and up, something like that. I'm also going to need the world environment. Let's create a new environment like that. Go to SDFJI and enable it. We're also going to need the volumetric fog. Let's change the albedo to this one. Now let's create a new mesh instance. And I'm going to create a new plane. Let's make it a little bit bigger, so about 10, like this. Let's also add a directional light and change the rotation, something like that. Now let's start working on our characters. The characters folder, go to GLTF, and we got 4 different characters that we can use. So what I'm going to do is just right click and click on New Inherited Scene, and we have a fully rigged and animated character. So let's go to the animation player, and let's make it run the idle animation. So this one, and click on run, and we want it to run in a loop, so I'm going to click here, and yeah. Okay, so let's go to animation, click on manage animations, and let's make it unique. Click on OK. Now let's make it loop, and let's run it. Okay, so this is going to be the first animation, so let's click here. Let's also save it, so click on Ctrl S, and I'm going to create a new folder called scenes, like that, save it inside of that. So let's continue, let's go to the characters, again GLTF, click on the knight, new inherited scene, let's go to the animation player, click on animation, manage animations, and click on make unique. Now let's select the idle animation, make the animation loop, and let's run it. Click here to run it at start, and let's save it in the scenes folder. Click on save. Same thing for the rogue. And after we finish with it, let's go back to our main scene. Let's also save this one, so click on Ctrl S, save it as character selection and click on save. Okay, so now let's add all of our characters, and I'm going to add it to the characters node. And let's move them, so something like that. Let's look at the camera. Let's move it a little, so something like that maybe. Okay, and that looks fine for now, so let's save it. Now let's go back to our character scene, so let's go to the knight. And I'm going to add a new area 3D. Add a collision shape. And let's create a new capsule. And let's move it up, so 1, something like that. And let's make it a little bit bigger. So something like that. Should be fine. And let's save it. And let's change the name of the area 3D to selection area, like that. Now let's go to the selection area, and I'm going to add a new script. So let's create a new folder for it. Let's go back, create a new folder, let's call it scripts, like that. Save it inside of that, click on open, create. And what I want to do now is go to node, click on the selection area, and I'm going to select the input event signal. Click on it, click on connect, click on connect again. And the reason I'm using it is because I want to know if something click on the collision shape. So what I'm going to do is add a new action. So let's go to project settings, go to the input map, and I'm going to add a new action called mouse clicked. That. And let's connect it to the left mouse button. So click on it like that, click on OK, click close. And now I'm going to check if the event is action pressed, mouse click. So if I click the left mouse button, and of course it's inside of the collision shape, otherwise it won't work, then what I want to do is place some kind of animation for the character. So all of the characters have the same animations. So if we go back to our knight and go to the animation player, you're going to see that we have a cheer animation that we can use. So what I'm going to do is get the animation player. So I'm going to write onReady variable AP for animation player, and I'm going to take the animation player from here. So like that. Now just need to call it and tell it to play the cheer animation. Now one more thing that I want to do is to check if the cheer animation just finished. Then I want it to go back to the idle animation. So what I'm going to do is go to the animation player, go to node, and I'm going to connect the signal animation finished. Let's connect it like that, click on connect. And I'm going to check if the animation name that just finished is equal to the cheer animation. Then again, I'm going to get the animation player and tell it to play the idle animation. Now one more thing that I want to do is actually create a new signal that I'm going to emit when the character is just selected. And I'm going to call it signal character selected, like that. And I'm going to emit the signal when I'm going to click inside of the collision shape. So I'm going to call emit signal. I'm going to emit the signal that we just created, the character selected signal, this one. And I'm going to set the character's name. So each of the characters has a name right here. So we have the knight, the barbarian, the mage, and the rogue. And to get the name, what I can do is create a new variable like that, an onReady variable called character, and it's going to get the parent of the area 3D. So if we go back to our nodes, we can see that the selection area is connected to the knight. So when I call get parent, it's going to get the knight, and I'm getting the name of the node. So this is going to return the knight. Now we still need something to connect it to, but for now it's just fine, so I'm going to save it like that. Now let's go back to the scene. And I want to add a selection ring to the character, so I'm going to click on it, Control A, and I'm going to add a new mesh instance. Go to mesh, and I'm going to create a new torus mesh, like that. Go inside of the mesh, and I'm going to change the inner radius to 0.9. Let's also change the name to selection, and I'm going to add it to the selection area. Let's save it. Let's go to the character selection scene, and I'm going to add a new script, and let's save it inside of the script folder. Click on open, create, and before we start writing our script, let's go back to the knight, and what I'm going to do is save the selection area to a new scene. So right click on it, and click on save branch as scene. Save it inside of the scenes folder, click on save, go back to character selection, go to script, and I want to create a new variable that is going to keep the current selected character name, and I also want to preload the selection area. So I'm going to create a new var selection area, and I'm going to preload the selection area scene. Next, I'm going to call the ready function, and I'm going to create a for loop for each of the characters inside of the characters node. So I'm going to write for character in characters.getChildren. So it's going to get all of the children of the characters node. And for each of them, I'm going to create an instance of the selection area. And lastly, I'm going to add the selection area to the character node. So for each new unit you are going to add to the characters, it's going to add the selection area to it. So now we can go back to the knight, and we can delete the selection area that we added. So right click, click on delete nodes, and click on OK. Next, what I want to do is create a new function, and it's going to be called character selected, and it's going to get the character name with it. So inside of that, I'm going to get the current selected character name, and I'm going to make it equal to the character name. And to show the name on the screen, what I want to do is add a new label node. So let's go back to our character selection, go to 2D, and on the top, I'm going to character selection, Control A, and I'm going to add a new label node like that. Let's go to anchors, and I'm going to make it middle up like that, or center top. In the text, I'm going to write name for now. Go to label settings, new label settings, click on it, font. Let's make it a little bit bigger, so let's change it to around 50. So something like that. Click on Ctrl S to save. Now let's change the name of the label to character label, like that. Go to the script. And what I'm going to do now is get the text of the character label, like that. And I'm going to make it equal to the current selected character name. So that is what is going to show the name of the character. And what I want to do now is actually connect the signal that we use in the selection area to the character selected function. So let's go back to the selection area. And what I'm going to do is create a new variable. So I'm going to write only variable character selection scene. So this is just going to get the character selection scene, this one, the main scene that we created. And to get it, I'm going to get tree.getRoot and get the node with the character selection name. So this one, you can just copy it inside of that. And this is how we get the main scene. There are other ways to get it, but this is just fine for now. So if you want to change it, go ahead. Next, I'm going to create the ready function. And inside of it, I'm going to connect the signal, the character selected signal. So I'm going to call connect with the name of the signal. And I'm going to connect it to the character selected function that we created inside of the character selection script. So this one. So I'm going to call the character selection scene, the main scene, and inside of it, I'm going to connect it to the character selected function. And what I also want to do, just to make life a little bit easier, I'm going to call the animation player. So I'm going to get the animation player, and I'm going to connect the animation finish signal to the onAnimationPlayer animation finished function. So pretty much for each character that have the selection area, it's going to automatically connect the animation player with the animation finish signal to this function. So we don't have to do it manually like that. So for each new character, I don't have to go to, let's say, the image, go to the animation player and connect the animation finish signal. So this is going to make it automatically. So let's go back to the night and we can disconnect the animation animation finished signal. Click on disconnect, save it. Now let's go back to the selection area script. And I'm going to open the selection area scene. Now if you remember, we added the selection mesh to the selection area scene. And what I want to do is when I'm going to click on the character, so when this function is going to run, or this if statement, now I'm going to get the selection and I'm going to show it. So I'm going to click .show. And just to make sure that we're seeing the selection only on the character that we selected, I'm going to create a new function and I'm going to call it hideSelection. So again, we're going to get the selection and we're going to call the hide function. Let's save it and let's go back to the character selection. So what I'm going to do now in the character selected function is I'm going to get the for loop that we created previously. And inside of the for loop, I'm going to write character.getChild. And I'm going to get the last child that the character have. So what I'm going to do is call the character and get the child count. So what it's going to do, if you remember, we're going to add the character selection for each of our characters. So let's say I'm going to add the character selection to the night. Then it's going to be added here and it's going to be the last child. So I'm getting the child count and it's going to give me back the number 3. But because we're using an index, so this is going to be 0, this is going to be 1, and this is going to be 2. So the selection area is going to be in the index 2, and that's why I'm writing here -1. So get the child count -1. This is going to get the selection area for each of them. And inside of the selection area, we have the height selection function that we created. So this one. So let's just see what it's going to do. When I click on the character, it's going to play the cheer animation. It's going to emit the signal, the character selected signal, with the character name. And as you remember, we connected this signal to this function, the character selected. So it's going to run, and it's going to call the height selection for each of the units. So after it hides all of the selection meshes, then we're going to show the selection mesh of the current selected unit. So it's first going to hide all of them, and then it's going to show the current one. Okay, so let's try and run the scene. Just one more thing that I need to fix is the mouse clicked. I'm mistaking the name of the mouse clicked action, so let's change it, mouse clicked. And you also need to go to the selection, and we need to change the visibility, so we won't see it when we start the scene. So click on it, click on save, go to the character selection, and let's run the scene. So let's try it. When I click on the character, let's say this one, let's go to play the animation, show the selection mesh, and it's going to show the name. So let's try the image, and also the other ones, like that. And let's try to do the wave, like that. And awesome, it works. So let's go back. Okay, so now because we want to change the character selection scene to the level scene, we somehow need to save the data or the character name, so we would know which of the characters we need to spawn in their new level. So what I'm going to do is create a singleton or an autoload. So go to project settings, click on autoload, and I'm going to call it global, like that. Click on add, and I'm going to save it in the scripts folder. And just if you wonder, there are more ways than one to save the data. In this case, I'm just using the autoload, but you can use whatever you want. So click on close, go to scripts, and I'm going to open the global.gd file. Inside of it, I'm going to create a variable to store the string of the player character. This is going to be the player character name. And just for more readability, I'm going to create a function for setting the player character name. Click on save. Let's go back to the character selection script. And now I'm going to create a button. So go to the scene. I'm going to 2D. And let's add a new button. And I'm going to anchor it down here like that. Let's make it a little bit bigger. So something like that. Go to inspector. And in the text, I'm going to write start. Now let's go to node. And I'm going to connect the press signal. Connect it to the character selection. Click on connect. And inside of it, I'm going to write if current selected character name, which means if it actually has a name and it's not null, then I'm going to call the global script, call the function setPlayerCharacter character that we created, and I'm going to give it the current selected character name. And after that, I'm going to get the tree and call change scene to file. Okay, so now we need to create the level scene that we are going to change to. So let's create a new scene. And what I'm going to do is go to the character selection, and I'm just going to copy all of these nodes. Click on copy, go back to the scene, click on 3D scene. Let's change the name to level. And I'm going to paste all of the nodes here. So we would already have a ready level. Let's save it. Save inside of scenes, click on save. And I'm going to add a mark node or a marker node like that. This is just for me to know where to position the character inside of the scene. Let's go back to our script. And inside of the change scene to file, I'm going to take the level scene like that. Click on save. Let's go to the level scene. I'm going to create a new script for it like that. Save it inside of scripts. Click on open, create. And inside of it, I'm going to create a new function called getPlayerCharacter. And I'm going to use a match case. So I'm going to write match global.playerCharacter. You can also create a function to get the player character, like get player character or something like that. But what I'm going to do now is just match the name of the player character to all of the names of the other characters. So we first need to create a variable for the player like that. And inside of the match case, I'm going to write if the player character name is equal to the rogue, barbarian, mage, or the knight, then I'm going to load the scene that is related to the name. So for the rogue, I'm going to take the rogue scene. So for the barbarian, the mage, and the knight. And just in case we wouldn't have a name, I'm going to write a default match case that is going to be equal to the knight. So now I'm going to call the ready function. And inside of it, I'm going to write get player character. So we would get the scene of the player character. Then we're going to instantiate it. We're going to add it to the scene. And we're going to change the position to the player position. So the player position is going to be the marker 3D that we created. So I'm just going to copy it and change it here. Let's save it. Let's go back to our character selection. Let's run it. Just to make sure that it works, I'm going to click on start without selecting any of them. So this is the if character name statement that we added. So if it doesn't have a name, it's not going to start. So let's say if I select the mage, click on start, then it's going to start the new level with the mage. And just to make sure that we can go back, let's go to level, go to the script, and I'm going to add a new button. Let's do the same thing. I'm going to put it down here, make it bigger, something like that. I'm going to connect the press signal, connect it to level, and if the button is pressed, I'm going to call getTree.change scene to file, and I'm going to give it the character selection scene. So let's go to inspector, go to 2D, and I'm going to add to the button, go back. So like that, click on save. Let's run the game. So this time let's select a new unit. So let's take the knight, for example, click on start, and it works. So let's go back. And let's select a new character. Let's say the rogue, start, go back. Let's select the mage, start, go back. And it works. Nice. This is the scene that I showed you at the start. It's mostly just meshes and different particles that are used. And if you want to know more about it, maybe about the particles and how I made them, just let me know in the comments below. So you can also see it if I go to the camera. You can see that I have a 3D node called assets, and I can disable it, and it's pretty much look the same. So this is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed. And if you want to see more videos like that, please consider subscribing to the channel, like the video, and if you want to learn more advanced topics like how to create an RTS style game, then you can check out my course on the Udemy website, and also in my own personal website. And you can also get the course on my own personal website. All of the links are down below.